The last topic regarding the matters of Muamalat is, of course, implementation. For, in fact, there is no amal without implementation. Amal means practice. So you cannot have a theory of amal. You can only have a practice of amal. Amal is to be put in practice. Without being put in practice, it's just not amal. And what we are facing here is a reality that we haven't chosen. We were being thrown into this particular world at this particular time. Most of us, we would have preferred to be thrown out in the times of Umar ibn Khattab, because just for the pleasure of being with the Sahaba, or even more better, to be with Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself. But this is the time that we have. And my Shaykh, in reflecting about these affairs, he one time told us, do not complain about the time that it has been given to you, for this is your time. Of course, throughout Islamic history, this is unique in the sense that we don't have a caliphate that we can appeal to. We are disgregated in small communities. A colonialism, economic colonialism, still continues by other means. Riba has taken over the world, and yet this is our time, no other. And he said, don't complain about your time, because in the same measure to which we can count our difficulties, with the same measure we should account for the blessings. For Allah has not put upon us a duty that we cannot fulfill. And if the task looks big and immense, it's because the rewards that Allah has prepared are big and immense. And let me remind you of the hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when he said, Islam started like something strange, garib, and it will become something strange again. As if speaking about Islam, it sounds like something that nobody knows about. And to speak about Islam, it sounds like you are a stranger. It's like it doesn't make sense. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he spoke about the ghuraba, these people who will come. And they will be strangers. And he said beautiful things about this. He said, blessed the strangers, in the same hadith, bless the strangers. And then he said another time, who are they? They are the people who will, uphold what is right, and they will denounce what is wrong, and they will bring the sunnah that has disappeared. There are several versions of this, but this is one of the versions, which I always thought the bringing back of a sunnah that has disappeared, things that they have been forgotten. What more than the Muamalat? Things, sunnahs that they have been forgotten, dinar, dirham, souks, markets, caravans, to bring it back. And then in another occasion, and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was asked about the ghuraba, and he said, they are like 40 men. Each one is like 40 men. And the Sahaba asked Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like 40 men of their time, meaning 40 men at the end of time is very weak. He said, no, like 40 men of you, of the Sahaba. And this is a beautiful praise. So if the task feels impossible, remember that it will not be done by our own effort, that it will be done by the will and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not our power. And then it feels difficult, so what? Suluk. When you're going to suluk in the tariqah, the Shaykh keeps throwing things at you, one more difficult than the next, until you learn the difficult task is the one that has more rewarding. That's why the Sharia is the difficult parts of the Sharia, the ones that they are more difficult, the ones that they have more reward. If you are in the business of rewards, of growing, of getting closer to Allah, you go for those. These are the ones that you want. It's a big challenge. The one that comes with the biggest reward is where you learn more about yourself. So yes, this time is difficult, but so immense, equally immense are the rewards. We are few, but few are plenty, said Shaykh Darqawi. Few are plenty. It's on account of this that we cannot complain about our time. It is what we have, it's our challenge, and we will stand before it. Before the difficulties, with the difficulties, easiness. So we have to find where the easiness is. Ultimately, the matter of looking at Muamalat and implementing Muamalat is a task that reflects first upon ourselves individually. It's how do you react to it? In which manner the knowledge of these affairs makes you an activist? In which manner this thing drives you to action? In which way this becomes intolerable within you and you have to act? When you start the path, I remember my Shaykh telling me, when you enter into the path and you start finding out things, the first thing that happens to you is that you start looking around and you see everybody's a hypocrite. They're hypocrites. They don't do anything. They don't care. I mean, they say they love Allah. They don't love Allah. They say they are going to be committed. They don't move a finger. They move half a finger and they think they've done a monumental task. And this is seen in the tariqah as a sickness. It's a sickness of the initiated, of the fuqara, when you start. And this is the first time you definitely need a Shaykh. Because otherwise you get drowned by this, everybody's wrong except you. And then the Shaykh comes and he tells you, everybody's wrong because of you. It's your fault. They are in this state because you are not doing your job. Instruct them, lead them, help them, and they will not make the mistake. It's you are the problem. And then you suddenly take all that and you put it into you. And you said, the whole problem of riba is my fault. And when you do that, and I remember going through this, I was terribly sick. I mean, I had a knot inside my stomach. I was desperate in undertaking. It's like I have to work more hours, more intensity. I have to study better. I have to be more committed, etc. Until you go and my Shaykh let me go into this torture for a few months. Just kind of suffer a little bit. Until one day he came, and when he saw that I had kind of grounded myself totally, then he came and he said, come here. And then he told me, the honey and the poison is the same. Now this sounds a little bit mysterious, perhaps, to all of you. But when you are like that, you understand it clearly. In other words, the world is perfect. The majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not augmented or diminished because the banks are becoming bigger or smaller. The majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is equally manifested in a gold dinar as it is in a US dollar. He is as powerful in when an act that we see as good as an act that we see as bad. He's present and manifested without exception on everything. Which it makes the whole idea of fixing the world as slightly problematic, since this is the world the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it to be. If He wanted to be any different, it will be different. This glass is where it is because Allah wanted to be there. Every hair in our head falls exactly in the way Allah wants it to be. So fixing reality, it means that I can do better. In which way? Eliminating the dollar is our goal. Isn't the dollar helping us? Could you imagine of a better advertising at a global level to say how evil paper money is, how absurd the whole thing is, than the dollar itself? Isn't inflation of 20% in Pakistan the best advertising to explain how bad this banking system is? And if inflation, it helps to bring the dinar into the streets of Pakistan, should I then make it one say, oh Allah, increase the inflation of Pakistan? I cannot say that. But if I say, oh Allah, eliminate the inflation of Pakistan, we just take the very tool. I mean, let's say if we make paper money work perfectly, oh Allah, make the paper work well for the people so that people like it. No, I don't want that either. So what is the fixing here? Until you understand that everything in creation, every leaf in creation, which is built bil-haq, is in your favor. That everything in creation is manifesting the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dollar as much as the gold dinar. That in every situation, everything is in our favor. As long as you keep seeing enemies, you cannot act. But when you look and you see everything is in your favor, every leaf in the tree is in your favor, the whole creation is in your favor, then you can act. Only that day you can free. Only that day you can teach. Only that day you can lead. So the first thing the activist has to do is to clear his eyes. Bombing a bank is not fighting riba. You can bomb all the banks that you want. It doesn't change an iota the affair. It's not by those means that the things will be affected or changed. It's by other means. The nature of which is nothing to do with the forms, but entering into the meanings. The real affair is to say, trust Allah. A community of people who say, trust Allah, these are the revolutionaries. Trust Allah, follow Allah. Give the meaning to the world. Restore the meaning of words, like the poets did, like the prophets did themselves. at a much more elevated level, naturally, when it was Allah speaking through them. Bring the meaning to the words so that the people can speak. What we have done over the last few hours of talks is to create a language so that we can understand the world we're living in. By creating this language, we can see into things that otherwise they are invisible. Just in the same way that when you bring meaning to the word riba, then you understand. It's like you open your eyes. A kafir who doesn't understand riba, he can look at the society, he doesn't say anything wrong. Then he cannot move. But a word is like a window. Through that window you can see where you couldn't see before. The same thing with souk, the same thing with caravan, the same thing with dinar, the same thing with dirham. So by bringing these words, we are allowing the people to see light. Not a fight, but a light. Bring the light to the people. You're not fighting anything. Your agenda is to bring the name of Allah, exalt the name of Allah before the people. The task is to tell the people, trust Allah. But in order to be convincing, you have to trust Allah yourself. Only then you can see how the world unfolds. In the war against capitalism, you have to understand that it is already won. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Harb min Allahi wa Rasuli," how long is it going to take for Allah to win? 1 second? It's kun fayakun. It's already dead. So, what is it in our eyes that we perceive power and force when there is nothing? Isn't it that we have been possessed by the same madness, the same mystery, the same magic, the same falsehood, the same beliefs, the same dogmatic nonsense? Magic, indeed. For the only way you can explain paper money is magic. It's a kind of magic. Let me give you my oil, everything I have. Magic. How do you get out of the spell? But with belief, witnessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The battle of the activist first is with himself. You have to believe more. If you feel that the banks have power, then increase your taqwa. It's the story of the naked emperor. The emperor, that it was sold, this jacket, but it was only visible for noble people. Those who are greedy and selfish, they cannot see it. So when the king realized he cannot see it, he said, I better not tell anybody, because they realize I'm greedy and selfish. So he put into this nothing. And he went on with his nothing, walking in the palace naked. And everybody was so scared to tell him. Nobody told him. And he was naked. And then he paraded through the streets, naked, with his new clothes. And it was an infant, a child, fearless, innocent, that points the finger. He says, but he's naked. And then everybody, the spell is over. And then everybody says, oh dear God. Until the emperor himself, oh my God. That's what you are dealing with. That's the power. The power is that. It's a fantasy that is completely ridiculous and absurd. And what it takes is innocence, is fearlessness, nothing more. It's not the power of the hands. It wasn't a soldier that told the emperor. It was a child. In a way, the Sufi is like a child, he's innocent. He's free. And that's what you want to attain. That freedom, that capacity to say, this is irrational. The emperor is naked. It's all it takes for the whole thing to fall apart. And when it falls apart, it will fall apart quickly. So activism means a very different thing than going and protesting in the streets, even though the day will come for that too. I can see thousands of people going through the streets in Kuala Lumpur, going to the central bank and say, give me my ringgit. But not for the sake of the demonstration, for the sake of the meaning that we don't care. So, activism starts from oneself. And what makes you the important affair of listening over the last couple of days to all these incredible, interesting ideas is what does it happen to me when I leave this room. That is the real story. In which way this thing matters to me. And that's why we started all this thing by saying it's all about taqwa. You know how you memorize these ideas. It's how this thing affects you. In which way you say to yourself, I take upon myself to help my people. I put upon myself the task of helping my friends, my brothers, my neighbors. It is upon myself to serve them, to help them, to liberate them. Rather than just keep going and pretending business as usual. From here it emerges the people, as the Sufis say. The people, when they say the people, they refer to the fuqara. And the people come together and they learn from each other and they strengthen each other by dhikr and by saying to each other, let's keep moving. By sharing with each other more their motivation, their spirit, their courage in coming together and keeping the good company, you find yourself motivated to go further. And from there it emerges the doing of this affair. For one individual is impossible. The very nature of Muamalat is things that you need other people to do it with. So when somebody says, but what can I do? You know, the ringgit is bad, but what can I do? The answer is nothing. But nobody asked you, what can you do? Is what can we do? We are Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, not Ahl al-Sunnah wal-individual. It's not what can I do, but you and your community. No, but I don't have a community. Well, this is where you have to start. Community should never mean a ghetto. These are the weekend revolutionaries, I call them. That they come, they gather, and they say to each other how great they are and how to liberate ourselves. For it should be always in mind, not our liberation that matters. It's not an affair for ourselves, but for everybody. So those solutions based on I go to the middle of the jungle and I rent a kampung and, you know, we start growing chicken and halal, you know, goats, and then we disassociate ourselves from the system. That is a no solution. It's not running away from people as if they were contaminated, but running into the people in order to clean them. Our task is to serve, not to save ourselves. We cannot save ourselves. You cannot save yourself. You can only serve everybody. We cannot say, well, who of us is going to be the celebrated ones? But it is all the Malays or nobody. We work for all of us or nobody. I don't want to be safe. I want everybody. I don't want to do for myself. It's meaningless to put myself in the boat and let everybody drown. No, I will drown if necessary, but I will be in the process of saving, of being with them. So this is a matter of integrating, not of disassociating, not of pulling apart from society, not from putting into this little corner of, we are the special elite. But we move into the people, we help into the people. We don't build little shops of halal markets, of halal trading. We build markets for the people, for everybody. We don't want a coin for us. We want a coin for the entire Malaysia. We plan from the beginning a coin that it will serve the entire mankind. That's what we started from the very beginning. The first thing we did was World Islamic Mint. This is when we had 20 coins out. Because when we did it on the beginning, we did it, this is for the whole Ummah. And when we did it already with that in mind. And we thought from the very beginning, the first thought that came across us is that we need a standard for all of us. We were already thinking of bringing it everywhere. I don't want the markets for my community. I want to bring the markets to all over Malaysia. For believe me, and this is the irony of our task, it's much easier to bring the gold dinar to the entire Nusantara than to do it in a small place. It is much easier to build a market of 2,000 stalls than one of 20 stalls. It is much easier to build 25 markets across Malaysia than to build one. If we just knew. What brings us back to always our hands is our very nature. But I want to do something with my hands. So you always bring it back to what you can. But believe me, it doesn't matter how clever you are. It doesn't matter how big your pockets are. You are nothing before the task. You have to learn that what you possess and what you know and what you have is not the means to your success, but the very opposite. An exercise difficult to do, I agree, but immensely rewarding, which is that it's not what is in my hands, it's what is in the hands of Allah. It's not what I know, it's what Allah knows. It's not what I can do, it's what Allah can do. It is in this perspective, only in this perspective, that we can bring the path forward in the right direction. It's only then that you can become brave enough to speak clear and to act decisively. Act decisively. Things that they will turn the things around. Don't close any door. A Sufi should be one that speaks the same thing to the peasant as in the Prime Minister. We talk to them, they are not enemy. We speak with the Prime Minister, we speak with the UMNO, and we tell them this is the way. Let's do something. For behind each one of them there is a heart, just like ours. So speak with them, with everybody. Don't close the doors. It's only in your head. Allah can turn the things any possible way. Just put in your heart always, instead of judgment. Just place wisdom. Let them see. Offer solutions. Focus on the positive. There is a very different thing to create activism based on what is wrong than based on what is right. Instead of focusing on, look how terrible the things are, focus on, we want to build new things. We want to create markets so that the people can have opportunities to get jobs. We want to bring gold dinar rather than criticizing what paper money is. We want to create wadias instead of criticizing what the banks are, and so on. You bring, you contribute, you propose, you bring ideas, and think in terms of as large as possible. Do not be restricted by your hands. I wrote to Dr. Mahathir, when in the early days of this affair, a document called The 25 Markets of Europe, or How to Colonize Western Europe. I don't know whether he got the paper. My impression is that because the things had gone a little bit sour with the entourage, he never got this paper. But I came across just recently this document I wrote for him. And I was trying to remember what was in my mind at that very point. It's to colonize Europe. It's not trying to defend ourselves. It's what wasn't Doppolo, no, how we colonize Europe. They have no idea what's going on. They have gone back to the dark ages. We can open 25 markets in Europe. For 1/3 of the budget of Madrid, we can build these 25 markets in Europe that there will be a permanent outlet to all the products of Malaysia directly from producers to consumers. We can bring goods there at a price no supermarket can compete with us. But instead of just doing it for Malaysia, we could do it for the entire region. We bring along the Indonesians. We bring along the Chinese. We create open markets in Europe in order to colonize them with trading, like it happened here before. The first people who came to Malaysia and Indonesia, they were traders. Islam arrived in China with traders. We taught them. And with that, we did dawah. Okay? But what is the state of mind that will make you think that way? Not looking into your hands, but looking into the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His capacity. By speaking about 25 markets of Europe, when we had not just one here, is nothing but to present this matter to its maximum potential. We can build one market, but we can make a policy to demonstrate that trading will eliminate unemployment in this country forever. And we can create conditions where the Malay minority, instead of being employees, permanent employees, wage slavery, they become entrepreneurs by lowering the threshold that it takes to enter into a business. So low the threshold that it costs you nothing. All you have to do is to want to work naturally. But the opportunity is right there. Marketplaces. From marketplaces, you can emerge as small workshops within the marketplace facilities. So you can start the beginning of the guilds. You can focus on some guilds. You can specialize on these things. But always favoring producers coming into the marketplace, not the small retailer, not the pasamalam, but the farmers coming into direct from producers there. Then you cannot compete. Nobody can compete with you. Then you will be cheaper. And then caravans. But what happens if we bring this thing at the scale of trading? When we built our first marketplace in Europe. First of all, we create jobs for the Europeans. They will say, thank you to these guys. It's amazing. Our supermarkets are choking us. There is unemployment in Spain. Then they have a complete different relation to Islam. They say, my God, is that what Islam is? This is awesome. The hands that feeds is a very powerful, convincing force. If their own politicians cannot help them and we can help them, then they will be in our house learning about Islam. When the Adhan comes, teach them, bring them to the prayer. Dawah. But what it will mean for us, it means we break up the existing monopolies, that they are choking not only Europeans, but our trade. We don't have to sell to Tesco, we don't have to sell to the supermarkets. 2/3 of all retailing in Britain is owned by supermarkets. 2/3. That's why you go to Sainsbury's, you find Israeli oranges, although they are 3 times more expensive than the ones coming from Morocco. But Sainsbury is a Jew. And who is going to blame him? He buys whatever he likes to buy. But the people in Britain have to buy whatever he wants them to buy. Is there a free trade in that model? Of course not. Are you kidding me? But free marketplace will mean that we create structures within Europe, run by Europeans. If we are clever enough, we do it by these new emerging European Muslims. Create 25 markets in Europe. We clean out the supermarkets. We break them down into pieces. We bring all the Muslim countries instead of this OIC nonsensical organization that has no meaning at all. We start bringing individuals coming from every corner, organizing caravans. We sell in Paris, in Madrid, here and there. We can multiply our exports tenfold. You must also equally conclude that if we are going to build 25 markets in Europe, we should have 25 markets in Malaysia. Yeah, the same thing. Big, open markets. Large policies. Why to aim small? Small high. Put it decisively. Bring policies that they determine an end. Why we should be talking about a small, how do we mint 20 coins? Why don't we speak about the whole ummah? Create a fund, create an organization. We gather. The OIC cannot do it, but we will gather enough Muslims throughout the world in order to bring the currency, the introduction of the gold dinar. Create an association that is determined to bring businessmen together. Not like it happens today, the so-called, how's it called, the Forum of Islamic Economics is held by Malaysia. It's just pure propaganda of Islamic banking. Nothing to do with promoting trading among each other. It's just a list of like yellow pages of businessmen conducting business according to capitalism. That's not Islamic trade. We cannot call Islamic trade doing business as usual between us. Islamic trade should mean changing the way we conduct our trading activities done by Muslims. Using dinar and dirham in our markets, organizing caravans, stimulating the creation of independent guilds that liberate people from the bondage of large corporations. Create our own forum. Why do we have to sneak in, as I have done a couple of times, into these other big forums? We create that. We organize. Internet has a lot of things that they are bad, but it's got some other things that they are enormously impressive. We can gather people. We can communicate simultaneously with a large number of people for almost costless. And then create ideas. Especially those who are younger, that you have a long life ahead of you. To think in a big way. Even when you have to act at a local level, even when the first step has to be taken with the local market, but from that local market, you make a currency for the entire world. Like Iran would argue, we need a global standard from day one, not from day 20. When you make a market, you say, this is the first market of the entire world. Like the people in Medina, when they did things, they did it for the whole world. The message of Islam was for the whole world. Everything that we do is for the whole world. When you use a gold dinar, you do it, and the stock exchange is down. You do it with that intention. Then something happens. This is activism. Do not isolate. Do not overpraise yourself. Roll up your sleeve. Serve the people. Don't try to serve your own community. Serve everybody. Serve it. The rahmah must be for all mankind. Don't be judgmental. Put the weight on you. If you find something is wrong, fix it on your own, on your term, on your turf. And think decisively. Think about things that they will have an effect, that it will alter things, that it will have the maximum significance. Markets, for example. When you want to build a market, it's easy to build a market for 20 stalls. But I promise to you, it will take the same effort to make one with 500 stalls. But it is lower than 500 stalls. It will not have the same impact. 500 stalls. And then 2,000 stalls. Why don't we make the grand market of Kuala Lumpur? We present it to the government. We pull up the first architects that there is in town. We gather the first team that is enthusiastically. We run on this idea to make a program, to make an idea for Putrajaya, the largest market, public market in Kuala Lumpur. So enthusiastically we will be that the government will have no choice but to join us. We present the project throughout the town until everybody is enthusiastic with the idea. We bring our enthusiasm and we rally and we gather the people. You see? Isn't that more fun than say, how much money do we have together? What can we do? Okay, that's too, where can we do? And 20 stalls, that's fine. Don't be conducted by what is in your hands. Don't be limited by that. Think of the greatness of Allah. Then only then you can see the way forward. You will not change. So bring the meaning. In a way, it is about the meaning. So where do you find more meaning? Into a small stall that you make once a week? Onto the grand Kapale Charse of Kuala Lumpur? Which one will reflect more clearly the politics, the validity, the value, the goodness that markets can bring? At a larger scale. The only thing we have to do is to, instead of speaking with the traders around the corner, we speak with the prime ministers and the others and the others. So what? They will be. Allah will put them in their knees if they don't follow us. The day will come where this is the only choice. But speak to them. Speak to all of them. A Sufi will speak with the banker as he speaks with the person in the shop. Do you think the banker is any worse than the shopkeeper who accepts paper money? It's just lower in the scale, but they're in the same problem. So if you don't judge, you will find the doors open. Speak with kindness. Speak with rahmah. Keep the judgment for yourself. Just gather. Use the Sharia not to throw bombs at people. Like, look at you, boom. Look at you, haram, you know. The Sufi doesn't do that. The Sufi will go and he will say, come to my house. Look how luminous and beautiful it is. Look at the possibilities that we have inside my house, the Sharia. Come to my meal. Join in our feast. Come and join us. That is the right way. And the moment you meet the first market, when we build that first market in Kuala Lumpur, I promise to you, you have changed the world forever. We need one market. And from that market, everything will change. Making that market the use of the dinar and the dirham natural. And the whole world will see how it operates. From this one market, you start connecting caravans. And you bring them together. You create reciprocal rights. The people of Kuala Lumpur invite the people of Johor. And the people of Johor invite the people of Kuala Lumpur. And on every season, a big caravan, not of camels, but of trucks, I guess. Or in the train. We go and we come to the market and we say, this is Selangor. And then another one comes from China, from the Muslims of China. We invite them to our market. And then next summer we go to your place. And then you will bring good things directly from the producers in China at a price the world has never seen. Just imagine for a second how it should have been in those days in the Kapale Charse in Istanbul. I just try to imagine 23 caravanserais simultaneously coming. Every week you go to the marketplace, it's something new. You know, who are here this week? It's like the circus. You know, it's like which movie is coming. It's nothing to do with the experience you have of going to cold storage. Every day is the same. The same faces and the same stuff and the whole thing. The market was, you know, the people from Uzbekistan have gone. They said, wow, let's go and see what stuff there is. And another one, and next week is another one. Opportunities always of new products that some will work, some will not work, some they're amazing. And I always have in my mind, you know, this man that is in the Pasar Malam here, totally mistreated by the society, thrown into the streets. Nobody cares about them. But this spirit of the Malay that, still, they've been working 8 hours a day, they go out at night, sell something, maybe 20 ringgits. I don't know how much they earn, but not much. They do kuih, or they do some food, they do some stuff. Always within a very restricted, supply of things that they can sell, with so little amount of time and so no storage capacities, nothing in their favor. But I always think of this man from the Kapali Charse, from the Pasar Malam, that it comes into our open market of Kuala Lumpur, and he finds his house. No more in the street. Here, I have a place, a dignified place, where I can trade continuously. And how quickly that individual, from doing kuih and earning 20 ringgit, start learning, I can sell this other thing, I can become agent of this. When the next caravan comes from Kelantan, they just say, well, that product is so good, can I be your agent here? And how quickly that individual could multiply his earnings just by the very fact that he is in the University of Trading, which is the marketplace. But it is in our hand how we think. And not to do it on account of what is in our possession, but what the idea demands. And this is very important. How we can bring to this maximal potential. We want to bring a Pondox. The Pondox is a great institution of the Malays. That school that for centuries have kept knowledge of Allah and has produced remarkable teachers throughout the time. And is almost extinguishing now in favor of modern education. And to revive it and to keep it and to maintain it and to uplift it. And to take all that and associate all the Pondox. Start by an association of Pondox, all of us together. And then create a market with all the Pondox. And then speak with the government. And then defend Siti Khadija from death, sure death, is now moribund. You go to Siti Khadija today, and if you had been in Kelantan 20 years ago, you will want to cry. It was thriving when I first visited Kelantan. Tuan Guru took me by the hand to see Siti Khadija at the time that it was so successful. There was not enough stalls, and the people were spilling over. And I remember saying to him, "Do you need more space?" It has 800 stalls. But in those days, it was in the center of town, and it was a big esplanade. Now there is a big mall there. A dreadful mall. And Siti Khadija now, one of the worst things that I've ever seen, is dirty. It's smelly, it's disgusting. Nobody cares. There are some stalls closed now. Why? Because you have a Tesco now. The Islamic Tesco of Kelantan. We cannot allow this thing. But let's take these traders in Siti Khadija and lift it up. And at the same time, I will want to bring a policy to close down Tesco, send them back to Britain, take the land and make the open market of Kelantan in the space of Tesco. And Tesco has to go from Kelantan. We don't want them, they have to go. Maybe I'm the first person to say it, but let me just say it for the sake of the fun of it. And no supermarkets, but open markets. And let's work with existing promoters. There are people looking for ideas. The whole idea of the mall is dead. It's dead. It doesn't work. The business model is over. We need different business models. Okay, how about this? The creation of a consulting body that specializes in marketplaces, assisting people Now that's thinking positively. Your customers are every location in Malaysia and Indonesia with more than 10,000 inhabitants. And what is your job? To give proposals to create public marketplaces. Public marketplaces. So you develop skills with architects, together with promoters, and then what you want from the government is give me the land, give me the permissions, and we start building marketplaces until there's no tomorrow. Now that's thinking positively, rather than relinquishing in how bad the whole world is. Gather together next weekend and say the whole thing is collapsing. Think positively, act positively, take initiatives, think big, go beyond yourselves. Don't restrict yourself to what you own. It expand the ideas to its maximum potential. You will find easiness, new doors open, and then you can respond to the necessities of society. It is from this impulse, at the very center of the matter, that you can convincingly create a movement. Remember that, like my Shaykh used to tell us, he said, I'm a factory. He said, my job is to produce walis of Allah. Ultimately, what do you want to do? You want to make the Malays richer? Be careful with that. Richness has not brought anybody any closer to Allah. There are two types of events. One, the one that brings you closer to Allah, and then the one that brings you away from Allah. Some people, wealth brings them away from Allah. Some people, poverty brings them away from Allah. Some people, poverty brings them closer to Allah. Sometimes a disaster brings somebody closer to Allah. So it is an account of how do you interpret your reality, where we are now. We start feel sorry for yourself. Or you can say, Allah has blessed us in this time to make something so new, so radically new, to liberate the people, to bring them closer. This is the opportunity. So, this is about not making the people richer. We are not trying to make an economic reform, but to bring the people closer to Allah. When you use a gold dinar, you mention the name of Allah. If you do not mention the name of Allah, that use of the gold dinar is useless. But if you mention the name of Allah, then you have elevated the person. Whatever you do, if you do it fi sabilillah, you have elevated the person. You have elevated society. So be aware of interpreting Muamalat as if it were a system of economic reform. For if you do that, you will be doing the same service as trying to say to the people how to pray because it's good for your kidneys. Or trying to present Islam to the people as saying, if you fast, you will become slim. That's not the reason why we pray, and this is not the reason why we fast, and this is not the reason why we gather together in order to bring Muamalat, but to only exalt the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to demonstrate that He has given us the means, that everything is in our hands, that if we want to do it, to discover that even this small group of us here, we can change everything. That we can do something extraordinary. That is something, we have something, a power beyond our hands, that it can change the world. So, an activist is a person that he has an eye in the world, but he has a stronger eye in the inner part of himself. He's a man of dhikr. He's a man that retrieves, instead of just running around like a headless chicken, once in a while, like it used to be normal for the people before us to retrieve 40 days in the desert or in the forest. Get away. To gather yourself, to see where you want to go, to pray at night when nobody sees you, to devote yourself to your Lord in your intimacy. This is the activist. Without these elements, you will offshoot 1,000 times. You will end up in cul-de-sacs. For if it is not true that what you are doing, you do fi sabilillah, you will not be able to encourage other people to do fi sabilillah. So, the organization of the communities is the title of this topic. What have we learned? That you cannot be alone. If you want to do Muamalat, you cannot do it on your own. To the answer, what can I do? The answer is nothing. You have to gather, you have to organize, you have to be together. Not to create a ghetto of the liberated ones. In order to serve the entire community, you are not in the task of liberating yourself, you are in the task of liberating everyone. Don't think small. Think large, not on account of what you own, but on account of what Allah owns. Not on account of what you know, in account of what Allah can do. Think that way, and you will find the path easier. Gather with the people who remind you about Allah. For what gathers the people is not dunya. Your aim is not economic reform. Your aim is to become a factory of walis. What you want is to make the people in Malaysia remember Allah, to be closer to Allah. That is the aim. If you do that, then you will do service to what Muamalat is. If you do that, you will truly gather the hearts of the people. Only Allah gathers the hearts of the people. If you put a mountain of gold, you will not gather the hearts of the people. Only in the surface, they appear to be together. In their hearts, they will be separated. But Allah can gather the hearts of the people. Only then you can act as one. Take the message to its maximum consequences. Expand it with your heart to every conceivable corner. Don't limit the people you speak to. Refrain from judging. Consider everybody potentially in your favor. For indeed, everything is in your favor. Not only every act of every part of creation, but every individual. Just call them in. Some will follow, some will not. But many will follow. Do not stop at any door. Consider every element in your favor, including bankers, including the government, naturally, the sultans, the workers, the students, the teachers, the farmers, all. Include them all. And start with projects that, even though they have to, by necessity, aim at locally, whatever you're doing locally, in a place, in a market, whether it's Kelantan, whether it's Siti Khadijah, whether it's a market in TTDI, where we do something in Bintang, in the island of Bintang. But every time you do it, in whatever location you do it for all mankind. When you bring them all a gold dinar, you do it in the sense of liberating mankind. Then you will see the path opens easily before you. The Jama'ah is necessary. The Jama'ah is obligatory when three Muslims travel together. They choose one emir. This is so intrinsic to our activities that we cannot live without it. So in the undertaking of the building of Muamalat, the community is fundamental. Gather, dhikr, and action. Without the dhikr, you will find that every obstacle becomes impossible. With the dhikr, you will find that every obstacle is a jump forward. With the dhikr, you will see that every problem becomes an opportunity. Without the dhikr, you will find that every opportunity becomes a mischievous problem. Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that's the meaning of it. So the first step, how is the timing? 10 minutes. So the key to succeed is the creation of the Jama'ahs, not individuals but groups, united, not in the sake of economic reform, but for the sake of bringing the people closer to Allah. And that brings us to the next topic, which will include the matter in terms of what are the immediate steps to move forward. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.